Hello, and welcome back to the Black Ordinary podcast, a monthly conversation about Black art, Black archives, and Black autonomy. My name is Caitlin B. Jones, and I'm your host and the proud founder of the Black Ordinary. The Black Ordinary is a multimedia platform, resource hub, and national database of community-based archives and community-based archival projects dedicated to the preservation of Black American history and culture. The Black Ordinary podcast is one of the many ways that the Black Ordinary Project platforms Black artists, Black archivists, Black historians, Black community leaders, anybody Black, doing the work to preserve the collective memories of Black America. For this episode, I'm so excited for you to hear from the incredible Dr. Sharbreon Plummer. Sharbreon Plummer is an internationally distributed writer, public scholar, curator, and interdisciplinary artist. Her research and artistic practice have been shaped by her investigations into Black art history and cultural studies, craft and material studies, Southern folkways, and her lived experience as a native of South Louisiana. She has developed courses for Newberry Library, Americans for the Arts, and the University of Houston, among others. She was recently awarded a Princeton Crossroads Project Arts Fellowship to actualize the collaborative project, A Requiem for Black Survival. A few of her other creative projects include a zine titled Diasporic Threads, Black Women, Fiber, and Textiles, published in 2022, and The People's Quilting Bee from 2023 to 2024, co-founded with Dr. Jess Bailey. She has organized curatorial projects such as Of Salt and Spirit, Black Quilters in the American South, Stitching Abolition, and Mirrored Migration. Of Salt and Spirit, Black Quilters in the American South surveys some of the richly diverse quilt-making traditions maintained by Black women in the U.S. South during the 20th and 21st centuries. Drawn from the Mississippi Museum of Art's holdings, the works featured in this publication highlight a major 2022 gift of quilts collected by renowned Black folklife documentarian Roland L. Freeman. Over 60 handmade quilts, quilters' portraits, and related objects together emphasize the importance of Mississippi and the broader South as foundational sites of knowledge production and artistic development. Dr. Plummer is the author of the forthcoming text, Black Quilts, Memory, Methods, and Medicine, to be published by Chronicle Books in 2026, and is the founder and lead consultant of Aya Thought Studio, a consultancy that helps creative world builders bring their ideas into existence. I am beyond grateful to call Dr. Sharbreon Plummer my dear friend, my big sister, and my beloved mentor in this crazy, collaborative, interdisciplinary art world. Without further ado, here's our conversation. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for being here. Thank you for just your brilliant mind, body, spirit. Let's get into it because I'm ready. I'm ready to hear. Let's start with our opening segment, Extraordinarily Ordinary, which honors Black American people who, despite their name maybe not being mentioned in the history books, their very existence is a testament to the incredible diversity, intersectionality of Black American culture. Whose name and story would you like to speak today?
So there are two people because I can't mention one without the other. I lovingly, and many of us lovingly know them as Mama Jen and Mama Vera, but Vera Warren Williams and Jennifer Turner of Community Book Center on Bayou Road in New Orleans, Louisiana. Yeah, I love them. They are phenomenal women. They inspire me so much. I think of them often. But specifically want to shout out Community Book Center, which is the oldest running Black bookstore in New Orleans and one of the few we have left in this country. Over 40 years, still hanging in there. Mama Vera started Community Book Center at her parents' house in the Ninth Ward, and now it has remained an anchor on Bayou Road. And they are just some of my favorite people, but have committed their lives to what I call like learning, literacy, and community building. Three of my favorite things. So I want to lift them up because they are phenomenal women and they have had such an impact on me and I love them dearly.
Yay. Thank you for sharing. Let's get into you. I would love for you to share how you got started in textiles and how that spark has influenced your trajectory to where you are now.
I would say that actually fits perfectly with the Black Ordinary because my entry point into textile started with my great grandmother. She always sewed, my grandmother sewed, but it wasn't until my great grandmother transitioned in 2014 that I really went down this rabbit hole of things, memories, etc., that textiles held. So I inherited her old Singer sewing machine. It's like a brick of a sewing machine that has to fold into the table. You can't tote it. This is pre-portable days. It is massive. And all of these clothes and other things that like still smelled like her house. And it just transported me to another place. And so I always like to say she gave me a lot in life, but in her transition, she unlocked this portal that really helped me to deepen my love of textiles. Because it's always been my favorite medium, but it wasn't until she passed that I really started to dig into it or into them from a cultural perspective. If that makes sense.
Absolutely. Let's talk about Of Salt and Spirit.
Hmm.
So I read a little bit about the exhibition in the intro. Um, and you and I have had conversations about how objects hold memory,
Hmm.
and quilts are a special kind of evidence of that truth.
Yes.
Can you talk about how you prepared emotionally for the interpretive work that was included in the show?
I was not prepared. I prepared. Of course, I did prepare. Let me not, I don't want it to sound like, oh, I didn't have any. No, meaning I prepared, but when you are working with other people's loved ones, memories, etc., there is no kind of preparation that you can have for how someone may respond or how people want to be represented. Like, although a lot of the women in the show, maybe were no longer with us, I feel like there were ways that they still wanted to be represented. And so I have these mementos and these things that are significant to them that represent their life. And so there was a lot of, frankly, stillness. There were times where, much to my partners in the work, they may have been frustrated with me, admittedly, but I didn't feel like I needed to make abrupt decisions. And I don't know that many people know this, but in preparing for the show, Roland L. Freeman, whose archive really and work made this show possible as well, in addition to the museum's collection, had transitioned maybe a month before I had committed to doing the show. And so there was a lot of sitting with his legacy as well. And in some ways, communing, no pun intended, with him in my mind, with all of these other women, to think about like, how do you want to be represented? What are the stories that you want to tell? And I think a really beautiful thing that emerged was without me even having to reach out. I had people's family members contacting me once they heard about the show. All of these really serendipitous pieces sort of came together. And even now, people's loved ones continue to reach out. And so that feels like a really beautiful nudge, and a bit of like a universal or even spiritual job well done. So I'm proud of that. But to get a bit more specific and, into the logistics, I went through several archives. So UNC Chapel Hill has quite a few of Roland Freeman's photos, papers, many things that connect to his travels, not just with quilts, but across the South. And then also a lot of conversation, a lot of dialogue with folks, talking to people locally in Mississippi, deep research and reading, both from cultural texts, but also in just discourse and personal dialogue. Because as you already know, for a lot of these women, they had very full lives that didn't involve them thinking about being an artist first. They were humans.
Yeah.
So that was the primary focus. So I like to say we had two primary sources. We had the books, and then we had the lived experiences as narrated by the people who knew these women.
Anything that you learned about yourself during the process?
Yes. I feel like this is something I may have known before, but it wasn't anything that I had claimed. But I now see and understand my work as a curator, as a practitioner. All of this is very much wrapped up in veneration for me. So there is really no separation in that. And so, if nothing else, I've learned to lean a bit more heavily into that. It started with my dissertation. I dedicated it to my great grandmother. It started with her, and it has only just continued, where these matriarchs and mothers and grandmothers find me and I find them, and we work together um, to do a lot of not just reparative work, but also memory work and collective archiving in ways that many of these museums and institutions didn't care to do for decades.
Yeah.
So,
All these divine connections. Can we talk about Diasporic Threads?
yeah.
Your zine, which is getting revamped or has been revamped and getting republished. Is that correct?
Yes, she's getting a fresh beat, new lips and blush, a few
Yes,
other
and
things.
I did pre-order, so it
Yep.
is on the way to my mailbox hopefully soon.
Yes, yes, yes.
So in Diasporic Threads, you define Black feminist material culture as the study and interpretation of the materiality of Black womanhood as defined by and for Black women.
Yes.
There are a lot of social movements that are calling for the reclamation of Black girlhood, rightfully so. But what does it look like for you to thrive in Black womanhood, particularly through the lens of textile work?
Mm. Oh, that's such a rich question. My immediate sort of response was, we're still figuring that out, I think.
Hmm.
Um, I will say that what I have come to learn through conversation and research, and even my own personal exploration, for those who don't know, Kaylin is a phenomenal artist, and we've gotten to work together as
Thank you.
well.
Thank you. Thank you.
But you, meaning you understand if I talk about like embodied knowledge, you know what I mean, because we've
Mhm.
been through that journey together. But I would say with each generation, we are continuing to not just reclaim and heal, but also in some ways like retool what these practices mean for us. And don't get me wrong, this isn't to say that our elders and foremothers didn't find liberation and freedom and joy in making, because many of them did. But as we know, the act of quilting or working with textiles, primarily either connected to some sort of job, labor, trade, or necessity. And so, even to be a part of a generation that now can engage or can continue the work of engaging with textiles in a way that feels exploratory and, you know, bound to our own curiosity and not labor, feels like an added step of liberation. But I think we now are in a very unique place where we have added language. We have a little bit more time and space to sort of investigate what these things mean to us. And so I kind of see my work and many others like me, my peers, in sort of bridging what we learned from those who may not have had the time and space, and also sort of looking ahead. So there's this past, present, future thing happening of us being in the present, looking to the past, but also looking ahead to how it is that we would love to see our work theorized about. And so for me, yeah, so much of how it is that we define textiles, what they mean for us culturally, is emergent. It's emerging as I talk to you today, as we discuss these things. But I would say for me personally, yeah, to me, they always feel like a portal. They hold so much. And we, you know, don't necessarily have all the histories that I would love for us to have. But that's the beauty of speculative work and continuing to engage. And back to my earlier point about veneration, through these activations, exhibitions, writings, all of these other things, I'm coming to learn more than I did before. I feel like I'm doing the work of stewarding these stories, but also continuing to plug in and sort of fill the voids of history that just frankly have either been buried or didn't deserve or didn't get their deserved attention or just due.
We'll be right back after a short break. And we're back. On this platform, I talk a lot about the agency that comes from leaning away from university institutions or academic institutions to
Mm-hmm.
create and preserve archival material. But I want to be clear for those who are listening and watching that I am not anti-university. I'm not anti-higher
That part.
education. But I am always saying that you don't have to wait for these big institutions to point at something and say, and like call it important in order for you to begin documenting and preserving the history that is already yours to claim.
Correct.
That part. So that being said, Sharbreon, you do collaborate with a lot of universities and have still been able to sustain the autonomous voices of the artists that you represent and that you feature, and your own personal voice as an artist and curator. Most recently, you and my other favorite big sibling, Lance Smith, shout out, shout out, shout out, have recently been selected as Crossroads Fellows at Princeton University. Can you share a little bit about your upcoming project, A Requiem for Black Survival, and talk about what that fellowship and collaboration with Princeton looks like and feels like?
Yes. And thank you for, I wanted to go back to the statement you just offered because it's so important. Even as someone with a PhD, I also agree, like, you don't have to wait for an institution to validate what it is that you already know. and I feel like when you were in my class, you heard this, and I'll tell anybody this. When I went and started to really commit myself to research, it wasn't that I started a program looking for new information. I came with what I already knew. I just needed the time and space to find the references and the sources to point back to it.
Mm.
If I don't say anything else, I'm like, I had to get that out. But to
Yeah.
fast forward, yes, not to sound snarky, but I feel like with a lot of these institutions, the least they could do for us, meaning folks of the diaspora, is provide time, space, opportunity, and resources for us to deepen our exploration of ourselves, our cultures, our histories, narratives, both communal and also personal.
Hmm.
And Lance and I actually connected very deeply when I was an artist in residence at Rogers Art Loft, and not just from an artistic perspective, but back to this notion of veneration from a spiritual perspective. And so we've grown as friends. We've also grown in our individual spiritual practices. And for us, we feel really inspired by artists like Rashida Bunbury and Renee Stout and others who really sort of merge African religious histories and narratives with visual art making or performative works. And so we wanted to really engage in sort of a mutual dreaming space with Requiem for Black Survival. So I like to say it's as much autobiographical as it is sort of a cultural statement. And right now we are doing or have done a lot of research and reading about these traditions and practices, both those we engage in and also those we are inspired by, to show the through lines across the diaspora, starting in the South, of course,
Hmm.
but then also going back to these respective homes of origin and thinking about this current time, this moment. Although we know what we're experiencing now in the socio-political climate, it's cyclical. White supremacy,
That part.
colonialism, etc. It's not imaginative. So
Hmm.
same things happen, just with different, clothes
Hmm.
on it, whatever.
Hmm.
But this project is meant to be a return to the practices, ways of knowing, ways of working that our ancestors have engaged in, that we should be remembering, the things that helped us survive for decades, for centuries
Hmm.
within this country in particular and globally. What are the things that they held and engaged with that allow a return to self, a return to the land? But that also pushes against this notion of that you always have to like hustle or kind of purchase your way to improvement. There are so many things they've left us with. How do we present that in a way that is not only sort of an altar to that and to them, but yeah, a call to remember. So we're bridging Lance's work in illustration, in drawing, painting, with my work in textiles, and both of our loves of research, to essentially create this 3D structure that you can enter that will be an activation, that's sort of a visual compendium of these histories.
And it will be at Princeton.
Possibly. So yeah, well,
Yeah.
it'll be I'll say possibly, meaning it
Hmm.
will be mobile. So
Got you. Okay.
it's intended to be more of a pop-up. So
Nice.
yeah, they've been really supportive. So I do not doubt that it will be at Princeton at a time.
Hmm.
But it's not intended to necessarily just stay in one place.
Sure. And what a beautiful title to give a requiem for Black survival is incredible, and to have this space where you can imagine a time in which Black and survival are not even in the same sentence is just
Hello.
mind-boggling in the best way. So thank you for that offering.
I'm here because of the love, endurance, and sacrifices of so many. And I feel really fortunate to have had elders in my life who were able to speak directly to their experiences. So um, when I speak audaciously or sort of do things without apology, the things I'm drawing from aren't, simply things that I think or feel. Like, no, my people they existed, they were here, they told me out of their own mouths. So who am I to not build from that?
Hmm. Are you willing to share anything about your 2026 publication, Black Quilts,
Mm-hmm,
Memory Methods, and Medicine?
mm-hmm. I sure am. I sure am. Thank you for asking. So I'm really excited. It will be published through Chronicle. Shout out to my editor, Mirabelle, because she's the best. And funny enough, I almost feel weird saying this publicly. Like that might be, that might be a personal pause point for me with quilts. Quilts will be going away, but I will be
Mm.
shifting to
Okay.
some other things. So you may just see less of them and more of me emerging in a different capacity. But Black Quilts Memory Methods and Medicine is really inspired to go back to the work of Roland L. Freeman. It's inspired by a Communion of the Spirits. It's inspired by Dr. Carolyn Mazlumi and so many others who came before me who have simply done the really important work of chronicling and documenting a variety of Black quilt making practices. So one of the things I wanted to do was continue to build on that, thinking about this notion of improvisation and us not being pigeonholed in that way, to think about Black, ordinary quilters, everyday women, and how their work wasn't by happenstance. They weren't these savants who just so happened to know how to make beautiful things. There was skill building, time, intention, all of these facets that went into who they were in a personal aesthetic that, frankly, I think many people were jealous of. That's why they tried to, play them and reduce it down to saying, oh, well, it's just improvisational. They don't know. They do.
Mm,
You just couldn't replicate
mm,
it. So you had to,
that part.
project.
That part.
So the book itself is broken into three sections, hence that subtitle, Memory, Methods, and Medicine. And so memory is bringing us back to the South as a home place. It's looking at how quilts hold memory, those who've done the work of stewarding that forward and honoring them. Methods is intended to show a variety of ways that Black quilters engage with quilt making. So, as a vehicle for and medium of healing, as a sort of site of political protest, all those things. And then medicine, which is an experimental section, but it's my favorite, looks at how quilts heal, what they've done for us, what they offer us. So, we're looking at cooperative models, how quilts have been used to build personal sovereignty and communal sovereignty and liberation, how guilds and other entities have allowed us to gather to support one another, and the things that our foremothers have taught us. So I'm really excited. It's 9 chapters. It is a visual feast. There will be lots of beautiful images, and it should be out early next year. So I'm very, very excited about that.
Yay. And I'm so proud.
Thank you.
I would love to transition to our rapid fire buzzword section.
Oh,
This is something that I did not tell you about beforehand. It's just a little word association
all
game.
good.
I'm going to read a word or phrase, and then you'll just give me back the first word or phrase that pops into your head,
Oh, I
and we'll
love
go from
this. I
there.
love these kinds of things.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Yay. I'm always happy when people get excited.
Yes.
Okay. Art,
Oh, education,
autonomy,
freedom.
sisterhood.
You.
Don't make me cry.
Don't you do it. Don't you do it. Don't you do it.
Quilt making,
Love
history.
and progress. I see it's like it's happening now. History's happening every day in
Mm,
progress.
mm. Louisiana,
Home.
ancestral memory,
My calling.
community,
Gratitude.
intergenerational knowledge,
The key. We need that.
Black womanhood,
Pride. I love being a Black woman.
period, material culture,
Currency.
mm. storytelling.
Like this is the hardest one, of course. I don't know. I said I'm, like the immediate word was everybody because it's something we all can do and we all have a place in. So
Mm,
everyone.
mm. Thank you for playing.
Thank you for asking. That was good. That was fun.
Good,
That was a
good,
lot of
good,
fun.
good, good. We'll be right back after a short break. And we're back. I am curious because I did mention earlier in your bio, Aya Thought Studio. Can you talk a little bit about some of your favorite collaborations that you've had through the studio, and then
Mm.
why the formation of that service is important to who you are, like as a person?
Sure. So interestingly enough, I started when I went back to grad school and I was trying to figure out sort of what was next. I don't know that a lot of people know this, but there was a point where I was like, I'm done with the arts. I'm never going back. I'm tired. I
Mm.
was worn out. But now look at me. Never say never. But I knew that I wanted to try to figure out something different. And so from there, I had spent quite a bit of time working in the arts as an arts administrator, and I think I'm very skilled at being able to take on the administrative aspects of things without losing the heart of my creativity. And those two bridge together, um, make me a really fun collaborator. So, not just fun, but knowledgeable in that, if you have someone who's a bit too sort of maybe left brain leaning, they're worried about like logistics and outcomes, and you don't have space to dream or be imaginative. And so, is a place where most of my clients are creative world builders, organizations dedicated to social change, just individuals who are artists, creatives, etc. And we create these really bespoke scopes of work that help them take this big idea or concept they have and they bring it into reality, whether it's me helping them to sort of almost be a creative doula and get it to a point of birthing and help them birth it, or at least support them with getting the steps organized so they can carry it forward. And I'll say two of my favorite aspects so far have been the one-on-one coaching and work. I think it's really a very intimate thing, and it's something I don't take lightly for someone to come to me with their really personal thoughts and things. As Caitlin, as you know, we're both perfectionists. So if something isn't neat and tidy, I'm letting you in. What do you mean?
Yeah.
That's scary. It's hard. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Ah. And, it can feel really daunting, and to have folks be able to reflect back and say, like, I don't know that this project would have gotten off the ground if we didn't have this time, or I feel so safe to maybe explore things in a way that I hadn't, is really fulfilling for me. But also, I get to work with dope people who need to be putting their work into the world. And we can't keep sitting on that. And it just so happens that it's typically Black women, not to call us out, but we doubt ourselves so much.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so to be able to have the privilege to do that work is so just special to me. Another part that I feel really excited about is creative like project management. So there was an artist that I got to collaborate with through a scope that I had. And shout out to EJ Hill. We actually spoke recently, reflecting on those times. It was me, him, and one of my good friends, Dejan Jordan. And he was doing an installation with Prospect, and we supported him with quite a bit of like community engagement and development work. And so to be able to be a liaison in that way, to advance things, not just from like a technical side, but specifically from the sort of personal, people, interpersonal aspects, feels really special because sometimes a lot of that connectivity and relationship building can get lost when you're sort of in the zone of we have to get this thing done. Um, but I think depending on the work you want to do, especially if it does involve people and you're working in places with either fraught histories or deep histories and people who've been stewarding that work before you got there, you need to be able to engage with them in a particular way. So to fast forward today, that was maybe 4 years ago. 3 or 4 years ago, he sent us a photo of like him and some of the elders that he originally met before, and he still goes to see them and they still engage. And I was like, it felt so nice to be able to be a part of that and to see it take wings. And now, they have their own sustained relationship. Him and his aunties, as he calls them, they are the aunties, they're the TTs. So I would say things like that feel really important. And the last thing I'll say, because I run long, but I think what makes Aya special and why I feel so proud of that is for a very long time, I used to almost feel shame about these sort of soft skills that people act like they aren't important, but they're deeply important. And I'm like, no, these are the things that actually make me good at my job. Because I could, be the queen of logistics and be a rude, a jerk, inconsiderate, non-empathetic, have no care for anybody else and not be able to see the full picture. But my ability to see others' humanity and work with those imperfections and find ways for all of us to still be ourselves and get the work done and not be spent is important.
Very important. There are definitely not only artists, but arts administrators that I think listen to this podcast. And it's very important for them to hear that those soft skills are just as important as the quote unquote hard skills that were, I don't want to say trained to
They
embody,
are,
but
no, there are things people can teach you. Most of the stuff we
yeah.
learn in school, and I mean, Kayla, you've experienced me as an instructor. I can teach you logistics. We can talk budget. We can talk board governance. We can talk about grant writing. We can talk about running a program and building out evaluation and assessment form. Let's actually sit down and talk about our individual selves, our positionality in this work, and how that informs how we show up and thus how we facilitate what we do.
Right.
And I find that can get us farther than, a very rigid approach to arts
Absolutely.
administration.
Absolutely. Is there anything else that you want to add or share about your work, your practice, upcoming projects?
I'll just say, a lot of folks have asked about Of Salt and Spirit because they couldn't see it when it was in Mississippi. The catalog is still out there, so you can definitely check that out. But it will be at Memphis Brooks in Memphis, Tennessee, in the fall of this year. And then it will be traveling to North Carolina as well. So stay tuned. But I believe it's up now on Memphis Brooks' site. So yeah, it'll be doing some more Southern Extension traveling. So it's on the
Yes.
move. So if you couldn't
Yes.
get to Jackson, you'll be able to see, I think, some other like really interesting iterations of the show because Jackson was massive. It was a huge show. And I think the other sites have done a really beautiful job of taking on the show. It has a sort of new feel and new life with the quilts that were selected, but still, captures the heart of the story.
So the Black Ordinary does have a digital bookshelf. And this is our last segment for the episode. Each episode, I ask our podcast guests to contribute 2 or 3 titles. Are there any books or publications that you recommend for listeners and viewers?
Yes. I would say these 3 connect to everything that we've discussed today in some shape, form, or fashion. So the first one would be Working the Roots.
Ah, yes.
The first one would be Working the Roots. The second one would be Belonging, A Culture of Place, because that starts to get us into the Black feminist material culture piece. And then because I did speak his name and he has been his work has been so important to me, of course, A Commune of the Spirits, Roland L. Freeman. So those would be my big 3 today. That could change tomorrow, but for now, that's what I'll
For
give.
now. Excellent. Excellent. Sharbreon, where can listeners and viewers find you, connect with you, keep up with your work?
I'm everywhere. I'm omnipresent. No. But seriously, if you're on Instagram, the beauty of having the name Sharbreon is you can find me anywhere. So at Sharbreon on Instagram, SharbreonPlummer.com for my personal site, and ayathought.studio for my consultancy.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your time,
Thank
your expertise, your
you.
knowledge, your love, your offerings. I could go on and on and on. I'm just continuously so proud of you and so honored to be your little sister and mentee and little
I love you.
cheerleader.
I'm one of your biggest fans. I am Caitlin B. Jones fan club president.
Please,
Love
please.
you down.
Mwah, mwah. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Black Ordinary podcast. The Black Ordinary is a grassroots platform dedicated to uplifting the collective memories of Black America. Be sure to check out our collective memory database and more resources on our website, theblackordinary.com. For more Black art, Black archives, and Black autonomy, you can follow us on Instagram @The Black Ordinary and subscribe to our YouTube channel @The Black Ordinary. Stay Black and stay blessed. See you soon.